We have registered.
Good morning, and thank you for creating time for us, staying on KBC Channel 1 as we kickstart this program, News Check. Today we just want to explore the road to the 2022 general election, looking at the dynamics that are at play. What are some of the things that stakeholders are currently doing in preparation for the next year's general election? And of course, we'll be looking at the people to watch in this particular journey and what has been done and what ground is left to cover before we get to the August 9th date. That's when Kenyans will be going to elect the next crop of leaders in this particular country. So I will be having that conversation in studio this morning. I have a panel of two gentlemen, and sitting right at the center we have Dr. Churchill Saoke. He is a political analyst, and of course joining us as well is Willy Mbugua, a politician, also has a depth of knowledge when it comes to matters leadership and governance. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time for us.
Thank you very much for having us. Yes.
So I want us to dive in straight away. We begin with the IEBC and their preparedness. It is less than a year, actually 10 months, to the next year's general election. And currently, as we are having this conversation, it's been 3 weeks since the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, launched or rolled out what they call the Enhanced Continuous Voter Registration Exercise. Their target was 4.5 million. But as at yesterday, according to a statement we received from the Commission, slightly above 800,000 new voters had registered. You can look at, the gap there. We will be addressing some of these issues, but I just want us to quickly listen into what the chair of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Mr. Wafula Chebukati, had to say at the close of the third week of this continuous voter registration exercise, and then we'll come in and begin our conversation. This is what he had to say about this exercise.
We have registered 760,000 plus individuals. The full report will be going out of all the counties. So we have only done 760,000 plus out of an expected almost 4.5 million. It's a very low turnout. I know Kenyans will normally wait until last minute to come out. So your last minute now is now, because we are closing on 2nd of November. So my appeal is to Kenyans, please come out in large numbers and register, because this is your only chance as the Commission is coming near you. Thank you very much.
All right, so that is the chair of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Wafula Chebukati. Yesterday spoke a little bit earlier. Later on, the Commission issued a statement and gave us a figure of slightly above 800,000 new registered voters that, the Commission has been able to, reach out to during this ongoing mass voter registration exercise that commenced 3 weeks ago. Now, what they are targeting is 4.5 million new voters, like you have heard there from the chair. And gentlemen, once again, thank you for creating time. Looking at, how many people have turned out and have heeded to the call of the Commission so far. 4.5 million, the deadline is the 2nd of November. What is going on first, and is this going to be achieved? Let me start with you, Willy.
All right. First, I would say that Kenyans are very disappointed with the government, especially in the last 4 years. And this is a fact. It is on record that even they were saying that people will not go for general elections in 2022. People are saying they will not go to vote. And I think now we need to see the seriousness of Kenyans with such an exercise. And now we can give Kenyans a benefit of doubt because we are last-minute people. But again, we must say, because the deadline is next week, do we have the capacity? Does IBC have the capacity to enroll the last-minute people to get to their target, because 800,000, that is less than 25%. In 1 week, does IBC and the Kenyans have the capacity to register that will be 3-point-something million people? Do we have that capacity? And so those are the questions we must ask ourselves. And truly, and for a fact, is that we do not have that capacity to enroll 3-point-something million people in the next 1 week. Even IBC does not have that capacity. Even Kenyans don't have that capacity. And so we must ask ourselves, do we extend the time for Kenyans and drum the support on sensitization that we need to do?
Really? Really? I mean, talking about extending this, exercise, this was a call that was supposed to take a good 1 month.
Yes.
And IBC was very categorical from the onset that avoid the last-minute rush. Avoid the last-minute rush.
Kenyans,
we have not had that enough.
We are gifted with the last-minute things.
Churchill, what do you think about what's going on? And, should we even be asking whether IEBC has the capacity to, conclude this exercise within 1 week? Is it the responsibility of IEBC that Kenyans perhaps didn't take advantage of the window period that was issued?
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
I think that there are a couple of factors that might come into play, especially considering that the roadmap to the general election had already been put to the public by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and the people, of course, one of the roadmaps to that election was voter registration, and which is now appearing to be really such a dismal. And we might need to look at it from the perspective of not just the mechanism of the rollout, but other defining factors that are maybe making people not to want to go to register as voters yet. And, when you look at the criteria of sensitization, especially that the politicians have gone into, it's more like, it's not really what I would call a sensitization, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at some of these political rallies that the politicians are going into, you are going to sensitize people, tell people that go out and register. But do you even have, are there other structural mechanisms beyond those crowds for people to vote? Or, for people to go and register? Especially in those, because, one thing to do mobilization. It's another thing to make the people who have been mobilized into the rallies to go and register as voters.
So what should be done? I mean, there are centers that IBC has set up that Kenyans can actually go and register.
I think that there is need for much more coherence between the IBC and the political parties. The political parties will do what they do best by sensitization, and especially sensitization not for campaigns. You see, those are two different things. Because when you're coming to sensitize me to vote, to register, but in real sense you're coming to campaign, then I am going to look at registration of voting with the perception of the politician.
All right. Let's analyze what is happening currently in our political dynamics. When politicians dive into this responsibility of creating awareness and mobilizing Kenyans to register as voters, is it a skewed mobilization, or is it a genuine, undertaking of a responsibility of a political outfit?
Yes.
Just let's be objective about this. Let's look at what is happening.
I am in agreement with you. So this raises the question: who stands to benefit more with the voters' registration? Is it the IBC or the politicians?
Yes.
The IBC is doing their best, I believe, they can to mobilize and even do sensitization for people to register. But again, it narrows down to the politicians. Who are we mainly targeting with the new numbers? It is guys between the last mass registration was about 5 years ago. So we are targeting people who are between 18 and 23, maximum 24. That is the number that is being targeted. So we can say 80% of the target is new voters. Maybe 30 or 20% is people who have moved the locations. They want now to change their votes to where now they are living. And so we must ask ourselves, why is it that the youth are not excited even to vote for the first time? Whoever will be able to answer that question and give a solution on the way forward to these new numbers, perhaps they might even carry the day, because the work of mobilization and sensitization will mainly come from the politicians, because they have most of the interest with these new numbers. And so whichever politician comes up with a solution why we are not being able to register these new numbers, then perhaps we might be able
Willy,
to...
you're asking very pertinent questions.
Yes.
We'll be delving into those as we come back. But in studio, we have been talking about the road to the 2022 general election. And just before we went to that particular event, we were just talking about the status when it comes to the voter registration exercise that is currently happening in the country. We are entering the fourth and final week of this particular exercise that was launched about 3 weeks ago by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And in studio, I'm having a panel of 2 gentlemen. I'm having Willy Mbugua. He's a politician. And of course, I'm also having a sit down with Dr. Churchill Saoke, a political analyst. So gentlemen, before we went to that particular link, we were just talking about what could be the problem. IEBC was targeting to reach out to about 4.5 million new voters. But as at yesterday, the numbers they gave us as a commission was slightly above 700,000. And there were a lot of issues that, you know, you were raising when we were talking about this subject. And my question at this particular point would be, could it be sending a much bigger picture about where the heart of the voter is, where their desires or perhaps their expectations are at this particular point, instead of just using the last minute rush culture of Kenyans as an excuse? let's go deeper and look at what message could Kenyans be sending by not registering as voters. What do you think? Anyone can jump on this.
You can go first.
Well, I think that I would say that the strategy, especially for the political mobilization, I really fault it. Because you see, most of the political parties that are in Kenya have got grassroots structures. They would have used structurally to use to sensitize people and conjoin with the IEBC's structures that have been established for voter registration. And so my expectation would have been that, you know, we would be looking at a much more grassroots, silent voter sensitization of people to come out and vote. I mean, people to come out and register using their grassroots structures than merely having political rallies. And you know, if that would have been done, you know, where you're even having, you know, engaging people on door to door, you know, we are calling you out not to come and receive our party process, but, you know, to come out and those who have not registered to go and vote. You see, that would be much more objective, because you see, right now, when you look at it from what is being done by, you know, all the politicians from across the divide, is that, you know, we want to go out and show that we support our candidates, so that, you know, the optics of the cameras can be able to see that, you know, we support but it does not reflect into the new voters. When you look at the people who actually have not voted that Mbugua mentioned, most of these guys are either in college, all right? They are either in college, or, you know, they're already doing something with their lives, that you need a strategy that will go and grab them from there,
from whatever they're doing,
exactly, so that they go and register. The other people that we see on the media stations, or I mean, we see on the public rallies, these are people who have votes. They have already decided that, you know, this is our candidate, and we want to support them, and we want to show that we are with him or her, irrespective.
But they have daughters and sons who may have not.
Now the question is, do they do that? What is it that they're going to say back in the because you see, some of them
at the dinner table,
some of them going to these rallies because they're going to get handouts. Yeah, true. But they're not necessarily that, you know, we want to constructively influence our families to go and get votes.
All right. Before I turn the coin, you'll add on to this, just staying on you, Churchill. IEBC, if I remember correctly, during the launch of this particular exercise, the chair said that in this particular setup, they will have, you know, those institutions of higher learning will have, there will be a center where they can register as voters. Is that something that is adequate? And they will not be required to go back or travel back home to go and register as new voters. Is that adequate?
Absolutely, that is there, and I've seen it. It's in universities, like in my university, and I've seen there is a center for registration, and even they would have even gone beyond that and engaged other non-state actors, other social institutions like churches, you know, even other areas of other areas of where you have other workplaces, like KBC here, people, they just, and they work with political, this is now where even the political parties could have been much more strategic. That, I want more voters. I want to vie for a political position in Langata or in Madari or somewhere. How do I ensure I get as much new votes as possible? What is it? Is it not something that they could even decide and even work with the IBC that, I want to fund one voting registration center?
Which is a very tricky way of going about it, if you ask me. Yeah, it's a very tricky way.
Matters of interest, I want to believe. First, allow me to just say asante sana to the MD what he's just done and just said. I can confirm that whatever he said is true. I can see all the guys on cameras here are our age mates.
young men and women.
We want
Thank you for bringing that out.
We appreciate that.
These are our lovely interns on the camera and just doing a wonderful job here.
Amazing and amazing. And I also want to tell you that KBC is one of the most beautiful studios I've ever been to. You have been to a few TV stations and we can confirm that this is one of the infrastructures are amazing. And so thank you very much. Coming back to the point of IBC, as a research student, I want to believe that they have enough data to tell them which gender has registered more and which age group has registered more, so that now they can put their effort more on the people that are coming out in large numbers to register, so that they don't now start throwing fists in the air that will not be effective. What I'm saying is we need IBC to take the bulls by its horn themselves, not the politicians themselves. Let us see them on the ground doing what they need to do. They can hit the target of maybe to 50 or even 60% going by the status quo if it remains. It means if we are at 25 registration, and then considering that Kenyans are last minute people, and then they have the data that can guide them which population or which number of which age group is registering more, they can emphasize all their efforts there, so that at least we can say they got up to 70% of their target. They might not get 100, but if they get 70%, 60%, then those are about 3 million registered voters, new registered voters, and then we can say we are headed somewhere. Because at the end of the day, IBC stands to gain and IBC stands to lose with how much they have gained, because we will judge them by the results they produce to us at the end of the day.
They're a very key stakeholder in this electoral process. Let's be sensitive to something that is also happening. Going around, you'd hear statements like, why should I register as a voter? I'm not going to take part in the 2022 general election. Why should I? That level of hopelessness about, a section of Kenyans. What could be the problem? Let's agree that there are quite a number of people who have decided they're not going to register as voters, and even if they have registered as voters, they're not going to ever take part in any upcoming general election. What could be happening? How do we change that narrative?
I can confirm what you're saying to you firsthand on a national TV. I have young girls from where I come from, Kiambu. They are called Nyararis of the mountains. These are young girls who are between 18 and 30 years. They are going door to door asking their age mates to come out and register. Most of them are in college and university. But most of the time when they go and pick these girls from the house or from wherever they are, they ask them, you have been paid to do what you are doing. So you need to pay us also to go and register. That is the challenge we are having right now. Because of the status of the economy, and now that and politics in this country, we have created a notion that politics is the best paying business in this country. The biggest employer of young people right now is politicians employing young people to be bloggers. So anything to do with politics and young people is a business opportunity for these young people.
Are we selling our birthright?
Of course we are selling our birthright now when we start asking for money to go and register. And we need to reverse that order as soon as now on national platforms when you give us these chances, and thank you very much for these chances, to tell our young people we are doing this because we want to see a better nation. We do not want to fight the battles that our fathers and our parents and our grandmothers fought. We want to fight an economic battle. That is the politics now we understand. And you see, whoever is emerging top at the politics up there is capitalizing their campaign on economy, because we are done with politics. Politically, we have been very right for so long in this country, but we continue to be poor. The equilibrium of poor people right now is higher than any other time in history, yet we are enjoying independence of 58 years. So the young people, we must tell them it is not about politics and handouts. It's about politics to fix the economy of our nation. And if we start getting this message out there and telling them to come out in large numbers now to register, perhaps they can listen to us, because we are doing whatever we are doing right now. No one is paying us to do what we are doing right now. I use my own fuel to come here and talk to the young people and talk to anybody, because I have a passion for this nation. I do not want to struggle. I don't want my son to come and inherit my struggles when he's my age. I want him to inherit struggles of his generation when he's at my age. And if we don't fix that now, I don't know what other time we are going to fix that.
The youth of this, have we failed the youth of this country, Churchill? Because this same narrative, maybe one would say, we've had these years here. You promised us jobs, you promised us. Have we failed them to the extent that the youth feel like their vote will not count at the end of the day?
I think before I go into that, it is important for the institutions that deal with the election to find with them other ways of sensitizing the voters on their civic responsibility to vote. Because you see, you can't be disappointed with the system. Choosing not to vote is voting.
True.
That's the unfortunate.
That's a nice one.
That's a good one.
Choosing not to vote
is voting.
Is either way voting.
Nice.
I like that.
So we actually needed to, the institutions of electoral institutions needed to make people, and not just young people alone, the dejected people know that any country is changed. Democracies are changed by the ballot. And if you find a regime not working for you, you got the power to change it in the ballot. If you don't do it in the ballot, then you conform with it. So the IBC and even the IBC should have actually even engaged non-state actors like non-government organizations that are in the space of voter sensitization and voter education to work on some of these things, to find ways of changing the mindset of people. Because you see, the politicians will go and try and change the minds of the people by what they can do. I mean, that's their right. That's what they're supposed to do. If you take your vote and vote for me, your future will be better. That is the best they can do, and they are right. But somebody who will be educating the voters independently will educate the voters why it is important to vote as a citizen.
That's why I talked about skewed mobilization when you involve the politicians in this. Because at the end of the day, for them, it's what is in it for me.
Yes.
Because it's not about why you should exercise your civic responsibility.
And I understand what Mbugua is saying in terms of, when the girls are going into door to door, the people don't see the girls. They actually even don't see the passion that has made Mbugua fund the girls to go there.
I have not funded the girls.
No, I'm not.
They have taken the initiative upon themselves.
Well, I'm just giving an example.
Yes.
They are not even seeing that initiative.
Yes.
They are seeing that these girls, these ladies, have somebody behind them. So this person behind them
is
funding them.
Yes.
What's our cut?
What's our cut in this? So you find that if you have left it for the politicians, that is the skewed thing that you're talking about, is what is likely to arise. And then you end up realizing that people do not objectively understand why they need to vote.
All right. How can the commission really redeem itself in the public eye, for them to have that level of grip and presence, you know, at the grassroots level, for people to really look at them and say, okay, let's listen to what the commission is saying. Let's listen to this objective narrative that is being sold by the commission, because it's been criticized, and it's been all manner of things have been said about the IEBC and how it conducted the previous elections. How do we change this belief? And
IBC being an independent body of the government need to have structures like how do we enroll like those girls down there, call them, invite them for training, give them some job to go and do the mobilization, so that the people they are targeting can see their age mates doing that. And so perhaps they will start seeing, oh, this is not a bad thing when it's coming from a civic point of education. Being told this is not a politician issue, this is about your issue, this is about your country, this is about it is about your nation. And so work with people down there to just advance your agenda, because if IBC fails, then we have failed the whole nation. We have failed a whole generation. And so we're asking them, get these girls, young boys, put them on training, give them the civic education and the basic skills of public speaking, send them out to go and do the sensitization themselves. Don't wait for politicians to do that. In fact, it is on record, and historically it is proven, politicians thrive in ignorant people. They want us to be ignorant. They want to come and tell us, hey, this is when you vote, you know, they come with that wave. But if these young boys and young girls of our age don't take the initiative upon ourselves, just like what my brother here is saying, failing to vote or registering, it is voting one way or the other. Because if you don't do that, that is where the bad leader will get in and continue with the culture that we are now fighting, that is biting each one of us hard today. That you have to convince people, even on a good narrative or a good initiative like this one, lazima kitu kidogo itoke kwa mkono, money has to exchange hands. Why would I pay you to empower you? You have to seek this. In fact, in any other nation, young people would be very excited to vote for the first time, but that is not happening in our nation today.
It's not attractive.
It's not appealing.
Voting is not that attractive for the young people.
In fact, if they were smart, if they were being proactive, as what you are saying, we would have actually separated voter apathy from voter holding a voter's card. Those are two different things. If the moment we align voter apathy in elections to holding a voter's card, we have missed the point. The first thing is, let all of us here have a voter's card. Then let it be the responsibility of the politician to influence us to go vote.
How to use that voter's card.
It is the role of the independent and IBC to ensure we have a voter's card, irrespective of our political inclination.
Yes.
As a statutory document that we hold in our pockets. As to whether we will use it or not, it is the responsibility of the politician. Right now, they are actually already taking us to the election, so that we make the politician be the ones who influence us to have the card. That is wrong.
So are we dealing with the two elephants, you know, at a very critical time?
Yes.
I mean, right now we are dealing with registering as voters, and the campaigns also picking up at the same time. So these two narratives are actually sort of like a cocktail.
And in fact, that is why IBC,
so Kenyans are overwhelmed.
That is why IBC has the responsibility to differentiate the narrative. That voting, we leave it to the politicians. But holding a voter's card, it is your responsibility to have it, so that that decision of making, the decision of making whether to vote or not, we'll deal with it at that time. Are you getting? We'll deal with it at that time. In fact, as my colleague says, they already have structures that they just needed to cascade down into the grassroots.
Before time, yes.
Way before time. So that it is not us sitting somewhere with the 2 chairs and a desk with an IBC registration banner and waiting for people to come. So what if they don't come?
The most unfortunate part is the IBC is waiting for the politicians to do their part, and the politicians are waiting for the IBC to do their part.
So
that's the most unfortunate thing.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Let me just mention something quickly as we move on to the next part of our conversation. Yesterday also the Commission announced that, talking about transfer requests, because we are talking about new voters, but then there are others who also are requesting for transfer from one polling station to another. The number they gave was 125,266 transfer transfer requests they've received so far. And of course, just in the interest of those who are asking how they can transfer from one polling station to the other, something I got is that you can no longer do it at the ward level. Right now, what you need to do is to go to the IEBC constituency office. That's where you present your transfer request, and then they can be able to guide you from there. So don't go to that center you are seeing there where they are registering new voters and you think they can be able to assist you from there. It is at the IEBC constituency office. From there, then you can be able to be guided. So those who probably may have gone there and they've been turned back, that's the new directive that the Commission issued. Now, moving on to the next part of our conversation, I remember earlier this year when the Commission was giving their election calendar, the breakdown of how the roadmap to the 2022 general election. The chair, Wafula Chebukati, talked about the issue of inadequate funding, and they were talking about a shortage of about 14 billion shillings, that they were running short of 14 billion shillings, and they were going to be forced to scale down certain operations because of lack of adequate funding. Just a quick mention and a quick discussion on this particular subject. How big or small a problem is this when it comes to organizing the election, when our electoral body is running little of funds? What are we looking at here?
Unfortunately, the economy is biting on everybody. The state of the economy for the last 4 years is biting on every stakeholder, from the government institution, the government itself, the executive, the judiciary, even us down here. And that is why we are saying whoever is capitalizing their political agenda of 2022 on politics, I think they are behind time. And that is why anyone who is being listened to right now by the youth, by the women, is anybody who is speaking about how to fix the economy. When money is sufficient, everything else goes smooth. Now, what do we know that IBC is going to miss because they lack 14 billion? 14 billion is not 2 shillings. That is a lot of money. It can do wonders. That is even money that would, however, even circulated in within our borders in this country. But 14 million, now our economy is short 14 billion because there is no money to fund the whole exercise. What becomes of this nation if we continue now cutting budgets for such wonderful and most important initiatives? What becomes of this nation? That is why there is no one problem in one problem. One problem will create 1,000 other problems. With the issue of economy biting on everybody will create 1,001 other economic problems and even political problems. And even this voters registration problem, it cuts across board. And that is why we are saying it is now very important to tell these young people, you have to vote. Your vote is your future. Your vote is your economy. If you don't do that, then you're going to sink into more poverty.
All right.
Yes. That is the economic education.
Seems like he's already, he's already alluding to the fact that the economic agenda is very key.
It is biting us now. If we had the money, there would be 14 billion to fund the whole exercise.
To really jump into another part of the conversation. I don't want to go there now. Quickly, Churchill.
Many of the government institutions are facing financial issues. A number of them are facing financial problems, and I mean, it is incumbent on every institution to, as it has been being done, to undertake quite cost cutting. Of course, the electoral process is very important. That needs to be funded as much as possible, but then it would have been very interesting to see what are some of the details of that budget, because you see, we also do not want to take advantage of the fact that the electoral process is a matter of urgency that should be prioritized and make that as a leeway for them to get any money that they request if the money could be prioritized elsewhere. So I think it is incumbent on any institutions, including the electoral process, I mean the electoral institutions, to look at how to make their budgets a little lean. Because technologies have come that can help us to achieve milestones and scale up our impact in anything that we do. And so they need to look at their operations and see how best do they work with lean budgets, even if it is not, if they are added maybe even something like 10 billion, or 11 billion, are they still able to give this country a free, fair, and verifiable election?
All right, well,
because again,
Let him finish.
it will be dangerous if we don't, because they might take advantage or not necessarily take advantage. It might end up getting into us getting, you know, a scenario where we get an electoral process that is a sham, and then base it on the fact that we did not have proper funding.
That's the risky part of it. You wanted to add something on what he said?
I think the issue right now should not be money. It should be a question of effectiveness. And I'm sure IBC is coming from somewhere concrete when they say that 14 billion would have done much better. I want to assume that they have put all those things in consideration. And so when we talk about 14 billion, then you can rest assured that a big chunk of the exercise will not go into the exercise. Yes.
That's true. So, Willy, you're saying let's, you know, rethink our economic agenda in this country, because that is affecting almost everything
when
in this country.
When we have money in circulation, the economy is growing, everything
Churchill
works.
is saying justify the budget.
Yes.
Justify the budget. Let's move to something else that happened yesterday. A multi-agency team on election preparedness was formulated. The Chief Justice, Martha Koome, is going to be chairing this particular committee, and it includes quite a number of stakeholders who are going to play a part in this: the judiciary, the Ministry of Interior and ICT, IEBC, National Treasury, Communication Authority, the Office of the Attorney General, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. They're going to be working together to sort of prepare the country for the 2022 general election. Your thoughts on this particular, you know, committee, and what is it that they should be prioritizing right now as the agenda, looking at the political dynamics as we prepare for 2022? What is it that they should really say this is our biggest agenda as we sit?
You know, when you look at election preparedness, I mean establishing a multi-agency committee is very important, because in preparedness you have three key things. You know, the issues around improvement of election management, and issues around improving infrastructure for peace and cohesion during the elections, and the last one is issues around improving the electoral security. When you look at it from that three-dimension approach, then you will realize that no specific agency can deal with it, because you see, there are political questions, there are legal questions, judicial, there are issues around, you know, peace and security, which need to be dealt with, you know, to just even early warning signs of violence and things like that that need to be arrested as early as possible. There are even issues around integrity questions of the people who are going to vie. So the multi-agency approach would be very effective in working. In fact, one of the things that they should have even begun this way earlier, because even the whole questions about this thing we are talking about of voter registration is also part of election preparedness, where they will have involved non-state actors to ask themselves, how do we proactively engage non-state actors to help us influence people to come out and register for voting? So it is something that should have actually started way earlier. Of course, they are more, right now I think they are more interested in issues of security, issues of, you know, peace, issues of the legalities around the process and things like that. So it is something that is important, and I think that they have not. It's not the first time they're doing it. I think they also did it in 2013.
Every election from 2013, 2017,
exactly,
and now.
Exactly. Yeah. So of course the multi-agency, last time I think there was a very strong focus on the multi-agency team, was more focused on the politicians and their capacity or eligibility to vie. So there was ESCC here. I think there was also, which one was the other one? So that they look at your, do you fit chapter 6 of the Constitution? Your integrity questions. But they have expanded it much more, which is okay. I think last time the Register of Political Parties was not there, which I think they have included now.
This time around. Is there anything you'd like to add about,
yes,
is this a welcome move?
That's a very important move for starters. But again, we cannot assume any political instincts when we are at this particular time where succession politics is being planned each and every day. Okay, The state has come out very clear. They have the side which they are taking. And so it would be very important to bring other stakeholders on board. We would like to see maybe secretary generals or maybe chairmen or women of political parties involved in that committee, so that now we know it is everybody's interest that is looked out for, so that we start preempting. This is a plan for succession politics ahead of 22, considering that now we know the state, there is the side that it's telling people this is the way to go. That is politics. You can't stop anybody from doing that. But for the sake of the peace of the nation and for everybody's peace, let us have more stakeholders. Let us have SGs, parties, SGs of political parties, or chairmen on women on that board, or even neutral guys from, just neutral people who are not taking sides. Let them sit there so that everybody's interest is safeguarded and we are all at peace.
All right.
Yes.
I don't know how that can play out, though, whenever you bring the politicians on board and with the level of mistrust we have in this country. We don't trust each other.
The problem.
Although I think the IBC...
And everyone has interest.
I think IBC has their own... IBC has their own caucuses where they have the politicians, I think.
Involved.
So. That one is a major one. That's a major combination.
Yeah, true.
That's a major combination.
All right. So talking about matter security, key highlights, the CS in the Ministry of Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, announced that the ministry is going to be deploying about 5,500 police officers and 3 cadets to help in ensuring the elections are conducted in a safe environment and that law and order is maintained. But there's this one thing I want you to comment on when it comes to the security being deployed here. They've been criticized about how they have handled the previous elections and how they handled even the recent by-elections. How can they, work out a relationship whereby, there are clear guidelines on the role of the security apparatus without that accusation of their being used? How can they really ensure that this law and order is enforced without having such kind of critic? We know where we are coming from.
It's a very tricky balance, and that's, I mean, Mbugua had mentioned it, because you see, it becomes extremely dangerous when them being expected to be independent begin to align themselves to specific political interests, because then it means that even questions about voter integrity will be a problem. You see, their role, for example, within the polling centers is to ensure that there is law and order, there is peace, there is no violence, and they are not used to stir chaos to the extent that you cannot even account for the votes that have been counted at any polling station. So they have a big responsibility, a big one, a very big one, that if they align themselves to any specific divide, it's gonna be, it might end into disaster. Because you see, there, for example, when you look at, when you analyze past politics in this country, and you look at specific regions that are considered strongholds of specific politicians, then you realize that if Saoke is vying for presidency and he does not have political muscles, I mean, he does not have strong muscles, then financial muscles, then his votes are going to be insignificant.
It narrows down to cash.
The votes are going to be insignificant there, because you see, there is a conspiracy of all players, including the vote. So you realize that even my agent feels intimidated.
Even your agent can be bought by your opponent, and they will not tell you they were bought. Okay. Unfortunately, that is when we say when we say the issue of economy bites each one of us hard. Those are the things we are talking about. And the issue of security, the most unfortunate part is that in every general election in this country, we have made it a matter of life and death. Okay. Now this is not just a general election. This is a regime change election. Okay, we can tell from where we are seated the people who are affiliated to what side, to what party, and so they must work so hard to earn the trust of Kenyans right now, because that is what Kenyans don't have. They do not have trust in their agencies, if they can be able to work on their trust for the next 1 year before general election, then we can say that is a common level playing ground for each one of us. But let not the state support one side as it fights the other side, and then on this other hand, it is empowering those security status, because people will start looking them as a threat. And when it's about a life, when it's about a matter of life and death in Kenya, a general election, people might not even come out to vote because no one wants to be shot this time around dead for voting. No one wants to be killed this time around for voting. They would say, I would rather stay at home than go lose my life because of voting. Let the government agencies and the government itself earn trust from the people.
All right, that's a critical one. Looking at how the security apparatus are going to manage the elections and stay independent without being mad in the whatever happens in the political terrain during the election, that's very important. We'll be talking about that particular environment, the 2022 general election, and some of the issues that are shaping this particular journey. When we come back from this particular break, stay with us. This is News Check. Today we are on the road to 2022. Do stay with us.